I just wanted to go over some news articles and some websites for the current drought conditions for the United States. Also looking at some articles on the condition of the bees, which pollinate our food. All of those things can lead to famine, which is just another reason why we should be wise stewards of what the Lord has blessed us with and save up a little bit as He leads for those times of famine. We know that there will be hardships in the end times. There'll be earthquakes and war, but we also see in Revelation that there's going to be pestilence and famine. So until the Lord takes us, we're here, and we know that throughout history there's been famines, but we also see that the Lord provided, for the most part, from those who He had told to stock up, like Joseph in Genesis. He gave him the interpretation of the Pharaoh's dream, and there was a warning that the Lord had given to the Pharaoh, but he didn't understand it. And in those two different dreams that meant the same thing, Joseph interpreted it to be that there was going to be 7 fat years followed by 7 lean years. And so they needed to save up a little from the good times. So if you're in a state of having the ability to buy yourself food right now before economy goes out or famine increases, it's only wise to stock up what you can and prepare for those days ahead so that we have necessities for our family. And this isn't to cause fear or excitement. We know that we see things will escalate as the day of the Lord draws near. It's just to be wise and to be a wise steward and to prepare for those things that we foresee that the Lord shows us. I know I'll share a quick story of just praying and seeking the Lord on this. I had before Christmas, around November, December 2015, I had the desire to buy rabbits because I live in a tract home and I can't have, I could have chickens, but I have German Shepherds that would chase the chickens, and I have a pool in the backyard, so it's sort of hard to have space for chickens. But I had a desire to buy rabbits and have 3-4 rabbits indoors where it's not so hot in the summertime in my office area. And my husband said no. And then I was like, okay. So I just kept praying, and I prayed if it was His will that it would happen. And so I went to the pet store to buy feeder mice for my son's snake. And I go there like every couple weeks, and they had a drawing for a rabbit hutch, and it was $1 per ticket for the raffle. And I had a thought to buy 5 tickets, so I'm like, okay. I spent $5 and I bought 5 tickets, and it was a rabbit cage. And I said, so I put it in, and when I left, I had the thought to pray, and so I prayed that if it was the Lord's will for us to have rabbits for emergency, in case there is, the economy crashes or there's, the prices increase drastically for foods, we would have a source of meat, the babies, not the pets, but the babies of the pets, and especially dog food for the 3 dogs. So I prayed and I said, if it's your will, Lord, that I have rabbits, let me win the cage, so that it would be a confirmation to me, And that was in January, and the raffle wasn't going to happen until March 31st. Well, the raffle was on my birthday on March 31st, so I'm 50 now. And they called me on my birthday, and they told me that I won the cage. So that was a confirmation to me and to my husband that I was supposed to have rabbits. And so I don't know when this time's going to be, when the hardships will be that that hard. When the economy does, I know that the Lord showed me the economy will go out, and I don't know if it's intended, the rabbits are intended for that time or for times after that. But I'm going to just look at some news articles here on the drought conditions for the west and the northwest and throughout some of our croplands in the United States, and show you what the current condition is. This is February 2016, and this is the National Centers for Environmental Information. Okay, so you can see from this March graph the severity. There is extra water, lots of water on the East Coast, but throughout our croplands, and California is a big producer of many different fruits and vegetables, we have severe conditions here. And if you read down through here, it'll tell you like there's been an increase in every area from when was it, from in the last year. It'll compare from month to year and it'll tell you, but there's been a percentage increase in all the areas that have had drought. It hasn't improved. Okay, right here in the wheat.com, it's going over this from November 2014. It's showing you the drought conditions here. This is a California's farmer's field, and I personally drove up through Southern California to Oregon and drove past all these farm fields. The hills next to these farmlands are brown, even in the winter and spring. And the farmer fields are brown except for those that are getting watered. Okay, so, and I saw Shasta Lake in, when was it? We went up there in, I believe it was October, and it was low. Okay, so this is talking about how much water Californians use, and the water conservation going on here, and maybe they should increase the price of water. My one solution to some of this problem in California, at least, is because that's where I live, is that they should desalinate the water. We're right next to the Pacific Ocean, and it would create jobs, and it would just open up, a way to get some water. Yeah, so that's my input anyways. It would create jobs and create some fresh water. Right here we have chaos sweeps away the world, as we know. The disaster current events catastrophe blog forecast for 2014 to 2022 read tomorrow's news today plus current economic commodity stock. Okay, right down here from July 18, 2011, it was already beginning, the world drought map, a world in crisis. So right here we see says drought spreads throughout United States and the world. Floods, tornadoes, earthquakes, tsunamis. Also, we know volcanic activity began increasing then. But it says climatologists call drought a creeping disaster because its effects are not felt at once. It's going to be, like the frog in a pot of water that slowly gets heated up. The effects will slowly, increasingly get worse until the point where it's too late. Others compare drought to a python which slowly and inexorably squeezes its prey to death. So it's something that's there's a long last. First of all, the prices of food will increase as production becomes less. And then the prices of water and electricity will increase because it's taking more power and more resources to get that water to the places that need it, especially to irrigate the farming land. So that's just going to make the prices increase also. And then if the economy goes out, forget about prices. It's going to be ridiculous, So if we see these things, we need to take heed somewhat and use common sense and use some discernment and wisdom and plan for that. Right here, This is a blog page, Watching the End Times, but right here it says worst U.S. drought in 50 years to raise food prices in 2013. And if you look at the food prices from 2013 till now, you just go ahead and Google it. You'll find prices have increased, and it's just going to get worse as food becomes more scarce. Here's NIDIS. I don't know what that stands for, but this is drought.gov, so a government site on current conditions. And so they say that current El Nino, has brought some more rain than last year, but it's been the warmest February on record for the earth. So it might have brought a little bit extra rain, but it's been warmer. Okay, so it's showing you down here on the map the drought monitor and where the areas of drought are. And let's see, we did get a bit more snow than we have gotten in the Pacific Northwest, sorry. But it says beef sales have increased over the past years. All meat has increased. And while drought in the U.S. Southwest reduced livestock there. So again, it still remains, drought remains, and not only the drought, which is gonna, we have no water to water our crops, that's one thing, but if we don't have a way to pollinate the crops, that's a bigger issue. So this site, this is a science site. It's scientists discover, this is a QZ.com. Scientists discover what's killing the bees, and it's worse than you thought. So they basically, they said it's colony collapse, but I knew way before they even said anything that it had to be the pesticides and the GMO crops that were doing it, and that's what they're discovering now. This is from July 24, 2013. It says new study pinpointed some of the probable causes, and it says they called it colony collapse disorder that wiped out 10 million beehives worth $2 billion over the past 6 years. Suspects have included pesticides, disease-bearing parasites, and poor nutrition. Okay, but in a first one-of-a-kind study published today in the journal PLOS 1, they have identified a witch's brew of pesticides and fungicides contaminating pollen that bees collect to feed their hives. So it's fungicides which are sprayed onto the plants to reduce fungus that will damage the crops, and pesticides to keep the bad bugs off. But these things are, the bees ingest, they carry the pollen back to their hives and produce honey from it. And they have to partially digest the pollen, which then, they're ingesting the pesticides. Okay, so they're discovering that it is the pesticides and the fungicides that are killing the bees. Right here from May last year, a sharp spike in honeybee deaths deepens a worrisome trend. So again, it's talking about the colony collapse disorder, and it said right here, neonicotinoids, a class of pesticides used almost universally on some major crops in the United States. The European Commission has banned the use of 3 variants of the pesticides on flowering plants, citing risks to bees and question whether they should be used at all. So that type of pesticide, fungicides, and I believe GMO, which are genetically engineered plants that have these pesticides engineered into them, and then we eat them. That's why GMOs are super bad. You're not just getting pesticides sprayed onto the leaves, but you're ingesting, the pesticide that's programmed into the DNA of the plant. all these things lead to our food crops not being able to be pollinated if there's no bees. There's still some bees. They haven't been extinct yet, but as the bee colonies begin to thrive, then some of them get wiped out, especially the ones that are near those farm fields. All right. Everyone's familiar with Albert Einstein, and they may be familiar with one of his famous quotes. If the bee disappeared off the surface of the globe, then man would have only 4 years of life left. No more bees, no more pollination, no more plants, no more animals, no more man. So ultimately, plant life is the basis for all food. And I mean, we eat plants, we eat meat, but the animals that we eat also eat plants. So everything is derived from, all the food cycle ultimately depends on plant life. So that is why I've always urged, and I continue to urge you to pray and to seek the Lord on how you can prepare for when the prices increase. I mean, would you want to pay 59 cents for a can of beans now and stock up on, a few every week, or wait until it's like $3 a can? So in 1 Timothy 5:8 it says, "But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel." So we need to, the leader of the home needs to provide for his family. And I've already mentioned and shared this many times before, but the example of Joseph and how the Lord gave him insight into the Pharaoh's dreams, showing him that there was going to be 7 good years, 7 years of plenty, which were in the land of Egypt, ended, and then the 7 years of famine began to come, as Joseph had said, based on Pharaoh's dreams. But they had stocked up during those 7 good years, or the 7 years where they had food, and so that they weren't without during the 7 lean years. The famine was in all lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. So they were able to feed those there and those that came because they had stored up. That's an example to us. And we know in Revelation we see the seals. I believe the 2nd seal is on the verge of happening between U.S. and whomever it may be, Russia, North Korea, China. Only the Lord knows, or a combination of countries. But I believe they're just waiting for, something to occur so that they can, it's just a matter of time before somebody attacks us and we are in World War III. I believe that's going to be the 2nd seal. And then we're going to see the 3rd seal, which is scarcity. So the cost of food is going to drastically increase. Sorry about the dogs. And then the 4th seal, after war and the economy goes out, we're going to see death. And it just says power was given to them over 1/4 of the earth to kill with sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. And so famine is mentioned here, but we also saw that the cost of a quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil or the wine. We see the price increase, and then we see hunger. All right, so this is I'm just putting these together and asking that you pray and seek the Lord on these things. And if it's possible, just store up a little bit extra every time you go to the grocery store, and before you know it, you'll have a supply that will at least last you a while, or that you could, survive on for a while by rationing. All right, God bless.